From various nationalities have called in their final declaration marking the end of the International Media Conference in solidarity with the Sahrawi people for unifying efforts to plead for a free media. And scores of people were killed and several others wounded in new airstrikes carried out by the Israeli army against various parts of the Gaza Strip. Those were the headlines, and now the news in detail from Radio Algeria International. First, the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmadjid Tebboune, has congratulated the women football team of the CF Aqbou and their staff for winning the Algerian Cup trophy against the CS Constantine. Prime Minister Nadir Al-Arbawi, in his capacity as representative of the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmadjid Tebboune, is in Banjul, the Gambia, to take part in the summit of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, OIC. The conference will examine political issues in the Islamic world, mainly the Palestinian issue, as well as economic, humanitarian and social issues and others linked to the rejection of hate speech and Islamophobia and the promotion of dialogue between citizens. 250 investors and businessmen representing 39 countries are taking part in the 10th edition of the African Forum on Investment and Trade, which opened today here in Algiers. The opening ceremony took place in the presence of the Minister of Public Works and representatives of the zone or the Free Exchange Trade Area, the ZLECAf. The meeting, which is held in the presence of representatives of African and Arab institutions, will focus on how to increase investment to secure economic development and promote exchanges. The Speaker of the Council of the Nation, Salah Goujil, has said that the cultural dialogue, repression and attempts to alienate the authentic identities of peoples is the shortest route to violent extremism, which Algeria is facing with a global approach based on security, development and the call to set up a more equitable and balanced international system. Mariam Bershi has more details.
In a speech read on his behalf by Vice Speaker of the Council of the Nation, Mr. Ali Talbi, at the 6th World Forum on Intercultural Dialogue being held in Azerbaijan, Mr. Goujil stressed that the repression of cultural dialogue and the attempts to quash the authentic identities of peoples was the wrong path to take, which Algeria is tackling through a global approach advocated by the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmadjid Tebboune, in his capacity as coordinator of the African Union. The chairman of the Council affirmed that our country is continuing its efforts to establish a culture of peace, dialogue and reconciliation that is not based exclusively on the political, security and development dimensions, but contains a deeper dimension that strips conflict of their cultural and religious values. He added that Algeria is fully aware of the importance of its cultural diversity, which constitutes a genuine human asset with positive effects on social cohesion and economic growth. On the occasion, he hailed the efforts of Azerbaijan, which through the Baku Initiative has succeeded in creating an effective World Forum for cultural dialogue at a time when the world is facing major challenges dominated by attempts to annihilate the authentic identities of peoples through colonization, forced displacement, genocide and war crimes perpetrated by the Zionist occupier against the occupied Palestinian territories.
The Algerian radio has celebrated the first anniversary of the creation of Ifriqiya FM, which coincides with the commemoration of the International Freedom Day, or Press Freedom Day. Ifriqiya FM, which was launched last year, has made significant strides under the wise management of its leaders, as emphasized by the Director General of the National Radio, Mohamed Baghali. Let's listen to him.
L'Afrique, s'il avait besoin d'une voix.
If there were a need for an independent voice which assumes its positions, as you know, Ifriqiya FM represents Africans' voice and of all Africans. It's not the position of Algeria, so it's a radio station which highlights the Pan-African scope of this free and independent united Algeria. So after a year, we are very satisfied. There is still a long way to go. Until then, we have done many great things thanks to all the Ifriqiya FM team, knowing that it is a heterogeneous team. There are many brothers and colleagues from African countries who are there.
That was the Director General of the National Radio, Mr. Mohammed Baghali. And scores of people were killed and several others were wounded in a new airstrikes carried out by the Israeli army against various parts of the Gaza Strip. The news agency Wafa stressed that the bombardments targeted the northern and southern areas of Gaza, as well as Al-Balah and the refugee camp of Nusayrat in the central part of the territory and the southern town of Khan Yunis. The Israeli attacks launched over 7 months ago against the Palestinian territory have so far claimed over 34,600 lives. This came as the executive director of the World Food Programme reiterated that the global famine affecting the northern part of Gaza might extend to reach the southern part of the territory. She quoted a report published on the organization's website as saying that the Gaza's population still face acute shortages of food security 7 months after the Israeli army launched its operations. Several organizations have for months warned that the Israeli attacks had caused the territory to be on the brink of famine, urging for a rapid ceasefire and for an access to humanitarian aid. Media professionals from various nationalities have called in their final declaration marking the end of the International Media Conference in solidarity with the Sahrawi people for unifying efforts to plead for free media to protect the fundamental rights of the Sahrawi people and the just causes from double standards. The participants to the conference, held in the Sahrawi refugee camp of Bujdur and organized by the Sahrawi Union of Journalists, Authors and Writers, underlined in their final declaration that strain from free journalism will open the door for extremism and bias. The participants also agreed on the establishment of the Federation of Journalists and Media Professionals supporting the Sahrawi issue. The Federation aims to unify media efforts to enlighten international public opinion about the facts and developments of the Sahrawi issue and to contribute to breaking the terrible wall of blackout imposed on this just cause by the international media subject to the influence of the Moroccan lobbies and those supporting them. It was also agreed to establish an international network to exchange information and follow up on developments in the Sahrawi issue and to ensure the dissemination of correct, relevant information and to reveal and expose Moroccan plans aimed at misleading public opinion. Our special envoy to Bujdur, Abdulali Belkhdar, met with Andrei Igorov, a Russian independent expert in the field of culture and science, who spoke about the purpose of his participation in the International Media Conference.
I don't represent any political party or power, but I think that the best instrument is soft power, is a culture, is exchange, because it's awareness of the country. First, I knew about Western Sahara by visiting a concert of local musicians who came to Moscow, and so I saw the new culture and the great culture of Western Sahara region, and I think that spreading this field, I mean, art, culture, music, is the most important to get awareness around the world about the situation. My experience, it's most powerful is to make cultural exchanges in education, in science, in art, in music. Yes, to extend these exchanges, and people in Russia will know what people in Western Sahara are, what are they thinking, what is their culture, and so I'm for cultural exchanges.
It's worth recalling that the International Media Conference in solidarity with the Sahrawi people concluded its works yesterday after 3 days of fruitful exchanges. The President of the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic and Secretary General of the Polisario Front, Ibrahim Ghali, has stressed that the Sahrawi people will continue to fight until the recovery of its independence and sovereignty. During a meeting with delegation members from the Balearic Islands, including the director of the Group of Friendship with the Sahrawi people in Mallorca and figures from the Spaniard civil society, the members of the delegation expressed their solidarity and inalienable position towards the Sahrawi people and their cause until the recovery of their independence. And the chairman of the Cuban news agency Prensa Latina, Mr. Luis Enrique González Acosta, has stressed at the Boujdour Sahrawi refugee camp that the joint action of the Algerian news agency, the Cuban news agency, and the Sahrawi news agency were capable of creating a strong media shield to defend the just causes in the world. Outside the first international media conference in solidarity with the Sahrawi people, Mr. González Acosta said that the reinforcement of cooperation and exchanges between the Algerian, Cuban, and Sahrawi news agencies will help create media shield based on experience and professionalism. He added that it was necessary for the agencies to find a way to work together to contribute to the defense of just causes around the world and to break the media blackout imposed on countries committed to questions of liberation and justice. To Africa now, where in the Democratic Republic of Congo, DRC, at least 12 people were killed and 30 others wounded, mainly women and children, following the bombardment of 3 displacement camps in the eastern part of the country. The government of the DRC blamed the attacks on the M23 rebels who engaged in fighting against the DRC army and took control of territories in the eastern province of North Kivu. And in Sudan, UNICEF has warned against a threat to the lives and well-being of hundreds of thousands of children in the southern city of Al Fashir in the event of an imminent military attack against the Sudanese town. UNICEF's Director General Catherine Russell said the escalation of the fighting in northern Darfur caused human losses, among them children, noting that at least 43 people, including children and women, were killed since the escalation fighting resumed in Al Fashir and neighboring regions for more than 2 weeks now. She added that the pursuit of attacks, including the use of explosive weapons in residential areas, represented a great danger for children and will only lead to the displacement and an increasing number of deaths of children. The head of UNICEF called on all the parties of the conflict to do everything to calm the situation, allow the safe movement of civilians, including the sick and wounded civilians who wish to move to safer areas, and to ensure the protection of civilians or civilian infrastructure. And the 6th edition of the Fair of Algerian Products in Nouakchott, Mauritania, has been well attended by the general public and Mauritanian economic operators. Since the opening of the fair on May 2nd, the fair attracted a great interest from Mauritanian economic operators keen to sign commercial contracts with their Algerian counterparts in several fields, including construction and public works, pharmaceuticals, cosmetics, food industry, and services such as international transportation. And finally, before moving on to our weekly program, this is a special page or program devoted to the achievement by the President of the Republic, where the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, has highlighted the main gains and positive results achieved by the national economy in recent years, ranking it as the 3rd economy in Africa, affirming his attachment to the social character of the state. Majid Mila, our colleague, has more details in this report.
In a televised speech delivered on the Workers' Day at the headquarters of the Central Trade Union here in Algiers before members of the General Union of Algerian Workers, UGTA, and representatives of independent national unions, the President of the Republic expressed his feeling of pride after achieving all his commitments towards the Algerian people, in particular the building of a strong national economy and the modernization of the National People's Army, 2 pillars of the power of any state. President Tebboune indicated that Algeria is now considered the 3rd economy in Africa and after South Africa and Egypt, thanks to a growth rate which reached 4.2% and a GDP which increased from $164 billion in 2015 to $260 billion at the end of 2023, and which is expected to reach $400 billion during 2026-2027. Reassuring on the occasion Algerian workers that Algeria is economically safe, as witnessed by international economic and financial institutions.
كلكم تعلمون ما هي الوضعية المزرية التي وجدنا عليها البلاد في 2019 آخر سنة من عشرية مافيوية، من اقتصاد منهار وباحتياطي صرف متآكل وصل إلى أدنى مستويات وفساد عام. احنا كل ما نجعل أمورنا شورى بيننا ما نغلطوش. لقد كان شبه اقتصادنا الوطني في تلك السنوات مبنيين على أسس هشة. في 2019 بداية 2020 كانت باقية 42 مليار دولار فقط، وبدأت الناس تنادي وفرحانين دوك يمشوا صندوق النقد الدولي. ولكن نعرفوا بلادنا ونعرفوا من أين يؤكل الكتف، وبدينا نصلحوا في الاقتصاد نتاعنا. ما نمشيش المديونية، أنا قطعتها قطعا، ما نمشيش.
The head of state also touched on the main development indicators of the national economy, such as the foreign exchange reserves, estimated at nearly $70 billion after having been put 5 years ago at $42 billion. He also evoked the improvement of the investment climate, which 100 requests for foreign investments recorded this year, in addition to nearly 7,000 Algerian investors, including members of the diaspora, who have expressed their desire to invest in Algeria, thus creating nearly 200,000 jobs. The President of the Republic also hailed the progress made in other sectors, such as agriculture, food processing and housing, among others. On the social front, the President of the Republic reaffirmed his commitment to honor the principles of the Declaration of November 1st, 1954, in particular the building of a democratic and social state that will never renounce Algerian social character. He also affirmed his attachment to the implementation of the principle of equal opportunities between Algerians, the achievement of social justice, and the fair distribution of the country's wealth, while laying special emphasis on the crucial role of the middle class, which he described as the pillar of the country's stability. The President of the Republic also reiterated his commitment to increasing the guaranteed minimum wage, exempting low wages from taxes, ordering a new salary increase, and raising the value of the national currency.
المرتب اللي أقل من 30,000 دينار ما يدفعش ضرائب ولا الرسوم. مع اللي نرفع له المرتب تاعو إلى 50,000 60,000 دينار يدفع الضريبات، ولكن في الوقت الحالي ما يخلص. لحد الآن الأجور رفعناه، نزيد نرفعه إن شاء الله. لما كل هذه السياسة اللي نصرت فيها أمامكم جزئيا تعطي النتيجة نتاعها في الميدان، في الضرائب، في الحسابات الوطنية، لا كونتابيليتي ناسيونال، أنا نلتزم برفع آخر للأجور للمرتبات وإلى آخره.
The head of state also announced the holding soon of a Council of Ministers meeting to approve the increase in retirement pensions.
ونزيد نبلغكم وانتم أول من يسمعها أن مجلس الوزراء يوم الأحد إن شاء الله ربما يتأجل بيومين، أيوة الأحد يكون 2 ولا 3 باش نقرر الزيادة في الريترات. الزيادة في الريترات تكون ما بين 10-15% إن شاء الله. هذه أنتم ما طلبتوهاش، ولكن فيه ناس راهم يفكروا فيكم، لأن كما قلت أنا منطلق نتاعي أن أنتم الأساس تاع الجمهورية.
Responding to the concerns of representatives of union from different sectors, the President of the Republic expressed his great consideration and respect for the White Army, which faced the health crisis induced by the coronavirus pandemic, affirming that he is keen to develop the sector's statutes, taking into account the noble mission of the medical profession. With regard to the national education sector, the President of the Republic stressed that he will personally ensure that the status of the sector meets the expectations of the educational family.
الجيش الأبيض دار نيف وبض وضحى وما نساكمش، والجزائر ما تنساكمش. أنا جو فو ان ستاتيو مونترون لا نوبليس دو كور، با دراهم، دراهم نعطيك يعني انتم والمعلمين سي دي ستاتيو اللي يخرجوكم من الوظيفة العمومي. كل باسي اوت شوز، لأن العمل اللي قمت به أنا نعرفه وربي يعرف.
Finally, the President of the Republic called on union representatives to raise their concerns and proposals to the sector's ministries for a swift handling, affirming that all responsible requests requiring an immediate decision will be quickly settled, and that what requires as in-depth processing will be handled depending on the economic situation of the country.
That's the end of it. Now our weekly program with our colleague Jamal Silmani. Thank you and bye-bye.
Welcome to your weekly program, Destination Algeria. I'm Jamal Silmani. There are a number of great destinations in Algeria just waiting to be discovered, a curious mixture of cultures and influences. Algeria has something interesting to see in just about every city. The country is also the first largest on the African continent, so you can be sure that there are plenty of towns and cities to